Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Brandon here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Carl, and he's selling his Amazon FBA and e-commerce business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Carl, and how are you doing today?
Hey Brandon, I'm very well, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you on the call today and speak to you about this business. But before we get started, why don't we give a general overview? So it is an Amazon FBA and e-commerce business in the kitchen niche created in June 2017. The average monthly revenue for the business is $19,633 and makes an average of $4,487 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 50261 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, what's included in the sale is the Seller Central account with 10 SKUs, a domain and all site content and files, a trademark, an email list with 120 subscribers, supplier contracts and relationships, and it is worth noting that inventory is not normally included in the list price and further details can be provided to active buyers, and buyers should have an active VAT number in all UK and EU countries where this business has inventory stored before the transfer can finalize. It is highly recommended to begin the VAT registration process as soon as possible. So, Carl, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Sure. So I started thinking about online businesses that I'd want to run in my last year of university. So I did an economics degree. I spent a lot of the sort of last year thinking about testing sort of different ideas, thinking about where I'd want to go. And I landed on e-commerce essentially because it's a place you can get started very quickly. It's a very tangible product that you can sort of move forward with. So I started thinking about, okay, what ideas in this space do I want to pursue? And I've always sort of been an avid coffee and tea drinker. I think that applies to a lot of people, but I'd say I was probably sort of one level above them in my interest and fascination in doing that. So I thought it would be a great place to start, like thinking about where my interests are and thinking about like, this would be a great place for me to start because I'm super interested in making a really good product here. So that was sort of 4 years ago. And it's really just kind of taken off from there, from doing some early tests and basically just building on what works. And it's kind of snowballed into the thing that I have today, essentially.
Yeah, it's really great to hear your story and kind of where it all had began. Now, how does this business primarily make money then? Is most of it coming from the Amazon FBA side or from the e-commerce side of the business model?
So the majority is still based on Amazon FBA. The last year of operation was all kind of about maximizing the potential there. So it was around expansion within the Amazon marketplaces. So going to different countries. So I initially started in the UK, now selling a huge chunk of the revenue through the US and also into Europe as well. So a lot of the expansion has come mainly from the FBA side. That's not to say that there isn't sort of another side. So there's also a sort of Shopify site associated with it, which still is currently kind of driving a smaller proportion of the revenue, but I see real potential to kind of grow that over time.
Okay. Yeah, it's good that you have that diversification within the business model, also expanding outside of Amazon. It's always nice to see, within these e-commerce style businesses. Now, if the business is doing so great at this time, why are you deciding to sell it on our marketplace?
Sure. So I think, as I mentioned, sort of the last year was all about operational expansion within Amazon. It's something that from my background in economics and other things I've done in the past, I've always been quite good at the operational side of things. So the expansion piece with, what you need to know to get set up in all these different places, sorting out the logistics side of things, I've always been very good at. I think the business kind of got to a place where on that side of things, the potential is sort of closer to being maximized. And where I think the business can go next is kind of expansion via the Shopify site that I mentioned, building out the email list more, and also launching new products under the same brand. And I just kind of feel like it's got to this point where, the expertise in growing this is a lot more on the digital marketing side, which isn't sort of my core skill set and where I'm looking to develop now. So it kind of felt like I got to a bit of a crossroads where this expansion for this current product via the Amazon marketplace had reached its potential. Where does it need to go to next? I think it needs someone who can really take it to the next level with new products and good skills on sort of the digital marketing side.
Yeah, that's something that a potential buyer could also take into consideration as a growth opportunity. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But I'm curious, so was there anything that you learned while growing this business that you plan on applying to current or future businesses down the road?
Yeah, I think in the early days, the main thing that I learned was really to test quickly. What I mean by that is you never really know what's going to work until you can get feedback from the market. So I did a lot of that in the early days, kind of experimenting with sort of bringing things out, seeing the reaction. And I think there's real value in that because I think people underestimate how quickly you can really get up and running with this thing with sort of limited downside risk if things don't work out. So that's one element. I think the other key element that I've learned is competing on price is only really like one element of how you could build something really exceptional here. And while I kind of see competition in the market, the thing that you can really differentiate yourself with is just sort of providing the best customer experience that you can, whether that's through sort of really detailed instructions, whether that's really quick responses to any inquiries, whether that's sort of providing great sort of free replacement parts if they're needed, and anything like that you can do to enrich that experience means that you don't need to worry too much about being sort of the cheapest one on the market. So I've never sort of strived to be the cheapest on the market, but what makes the brand really stand out is it's a really strong brand. It has high sort of perceived quality, but also the experience that a customer gets when they buy through me is I try and deliver as best experience as possible.
Yeah, it's really great that you've taken that approach to make sure that the customer comes first and that their experience is great throughout the entire buying process of the brands and the products. Now, so was there anything that you tried with this business and it just didn't give you the ROI that you were expecting?
Not so far. I think, this is something that has only ever demanded a sort of a smaller chunk of my time in any given week. So it's not like I've sort of tried these big new things beyond the FBA and the Shopify site. I've always been looking for the leverage there. Like, what's the most leverage thing I can do with my time? So there's nothing that I've sunk a huge amount of energy and effort into that hasn't really paid off because I was so targeted with where I spent that time. So one of the things I thought was really important from the outset is just to have like an exceptional listing, have like really great photos. And I invested a lot of time and energy and money into that from a very early stage. And the ROI on that has been sort of huge. I guess the biggest thing where I see the most potential where I've spent the less time is setting up my Shopify site, which sort of immediately generated a bunch of organic sales without sort of any outward marketing on that side of things. But where do I see like the most potential ROI for something that I have done that I haven't really explored as much? I guess the answer would be on that Shopify site. Like, there is so much potential to drive more traffic and turn that into a much more positive ROI activity than it currently is.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great avenue to explore. And I'm sure our potential buyers that are listening to this call can also see that as a value proposition as well with this business, offering great potential as well, just based on the foundation you've already created. So where would you say that a majority of your traffic comes from then? Is most of it coming through organic Amazon search traffic, or do you have some advertising that you're also running to get traffic into the listings?
Yeah, it's about a 50-50 split, I'd say, between sort of Amazon PPC and organic Amazon marketing. I rank quite highly on a bunch of super important keywords so that the organic sales is good there. I generally see like the revenue doubling on the back of PPC marketing. So that definitely two main channels. And as I said, the bulk of the revenue is through Amazon. So that's where I see most of the traffic coming from. With regards to the Shopify organic traffic, there's a whole bunch of different places that this comes from. There's some articles where the London SIP is listed as like one of the key products in its niche. And that drives a bunch of traffic from people sort of reading those newsletters and that kind of thing. But yeah, there'll be some customers who mention the product on Reddit, for example, and that will drive some additional traffic to the website. So there's a huge sort of variety of sources for the additional sort of Shopify traffic.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great to see that you've already kind of figured out some of these extra avenues. Now, would you say that you're doing anything else as far as marketing is concerned for this business, as far as using your email list or any other forms of marketing as on social media or anything like that?
It's super light touch. The email list has only really been used to launch the website. So the short answer, I guess, is no. It's all off Amazon sales have been organically driven so far. And the Amazon channels are obviously either organic people searching via Amazon or PPC. So it's really been super hands off there so far.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great to see. So hypothetically speaking, Carl, if you were to keep this business, what are some of the ways that you would personally try and grow it?
I think one of the first places I would look is on new products. I think the brand has kind of like an exceptional foundation to it of this sort of like quality, nice looking brand. And I think you can extend that in many ways to sort of complementary products outside of the core product offering of the business. So that's definitely one place I would look to sort of test new ideas. The second thing is really the digital marketing side again, how to drive more traffic to that, more off Amazon traffic, and kind of diversify the revenue streams a bit more there. So they're really the two key things, the digital marketing side and also offering products, which I think there's sort of huge potential for other products that would really sit nicely under the brand that's been created.
Yeah, that's really good that you've also kind of established that kind of, I guess, route you could consider that for a potential buyer. Now, can you describe how you're getting some of the inventory from your suppliers or your manufacturers into Amazon's warehouse?
Sure. So back in the earlier days, I was kind of doing this more direct through a couple of freight forwarding relationships I've had from the US and the UK. So I would typically forward inventory straight from my manufacturer straight into Amazon warehouses where we were typically doing lower volume. What I'm now doing is I've sort of building up relationships with third-party warehouses in all of the places that we operate. And what that is enabling me to do is obviously sort of order in bigger quantities, send them direct to these third-party warehouses where storage is typically cheaper. And it just gives a lot more sort of certainty over inventory. So you don't have to worry about shipping thousands of units into Amazon. You can ship them to these third-party places. They're willing to hold on to them for a really long time. And then when you're replenishing your inventory, you're simply replenishing the stock within the third-party warehouses. So I have this set up in the US already. I'm still working through having this set up in the UK and Europe as well. But going forwards, that's how things will work. It will be this smaller network of third-party warehouses that almost like drip feeding inventory into Amazon warehouses as and when they need it in each of the locations which we operate.
Okay, got it. Now, can you describe some of the typical tasks or operations that you're doing on this business personally on a weekly basis?
Sure. The first sort of main two really are the management of inventory, keeping track of that, making sure that we have everything in stock where we need to be. The second sort of biggest one really is just the customer service element, which I think there's huge potential for this to be outsourced if this is something that wasn't wanting to be managed day to day. But it's something that I still sort of learn a lot from hearing back from my customers. So I'm sort of keen to hold on to it, and I sort of like take their feedback and respond to them when I can. So that one I'd actually probably put at number one at the moment, is that the key number one activity is sort of the day-to-day customer service element of things. Aside from that, anytime that I need translations, anytime that I need sort of more design work, which I haven't typically done, I've got a list of kind of like recommended freelancers that I've sort of built up relationships with in the past. And that work will just be sort of shipped over to them quite quickly. The two main ones really, inventory management and customer service, are the ones I've held on to.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty expected, I guess, for this specific business model. Now, what do you feel are maybe some of the potential risks associated with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
I think, the core product, although it's kind of been expanded to have sort of different variations, it is essentially still a business that has sort of a single product offering, although it sort of cover a lot of elements of that offering. So it's not risky in the sense that you've got sort of one listing, and if that goes badly, then the whole business is in trouble. It's certainly not that. It's much wider than that. But I see the sort of risk in not diversifying that a bit further. I think, as I said, there was sort of huge potential for that. And I think that would really be the next step to kind of make the revenue sort of more consistently coming from different places. So that would be my number one. I guess the second one as well, which I guess is a pretty generic Amazon FBA risk, which is, if the majority of your sales are still coming through FBA, you should look to diversify that to some off-channel sales as well. So you don't want to be 100% run FBA, which thankfully we're not. But closely, you can get to a split between sort of FBA sales and Shopify sales or any other e-commerce sales, such that, if any changes happen internally at Amazon that affect your listing, or sort of any problems at warehouses that Amazon own, you still have this sort of separate revenue source that's kind of continues working for you despite any problems that occur there.
Okay. Diversifying your products and your SKUs obviously is something that you can help maybe even alleviate some of the issues that might come about. But it's good that you have that spread already, and you can take that and run with that as a potential buyer as well, too. Now, Carl, are you willing to commit to a non-compete, meaning any current or future businesses down the road, you'll stay out of this specific niche?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a sort of a lot of my emotional energy invested in this, getting it to where it is now and making it work. For the next steps, I really wanted to see it succeed. I'm not sort of handing this off to kind of go and start something similar. I'm really handing it off because I think it needs a different type of expertise to take it to the next level. But I'm still like super keen to see it go really well during that transition phase and when that happens. So absolutely, I'm happy with that.
Okay, perfect. And then how much support are you willing to offer potential buyers? Are you going with the typical 30 days of email and Skype support, or did you have something in addition that you would like to add on to that?
Yeah, I'm actually willing to be super flexible with this. Again, it kind of comes back to what I was just saying, like it's a lot of my emotional energy has been invested in this. So anything else additional I can do to make that transition period go really well, I am sort of within reason, really happy to do. So the standard 30 days with sort of a few calls and email support, absolutely willing to do. I'm happy to extend that if needed to 60 days and sort of throw in a few more calls there. But I'm really open to whatever a potential buyer thinks they will need from me. And I'm pretty sure I'll be able to accommodate any version of that, really.
Okay. Yeah, it's perfect to hear that you're willing to make sure that the business goes on to the next owner and succeeds, and helping them along that process too is always great to hear. Now, are you open to negotiating something like an earnout where you'll receive a large portion of the sales price up front and then smaller payments closing out the deal over the course of a couple months after that?
Yeah, again, willing to consider that, willing to be flexible to any potential buyer's requests there. I think that can do a really nice thing around aligning incentives across like the new buyer and the person selling. So I understand why that would be a really attractive thing. And as I say, if that will help this process run smoother and create more alignment between the two parties, then yeah, I'm definitely willing to consider it.
Okay, perfect. And just the final question for you, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think that your business is worth buying?
I think the business is worth buying because the product itself is actually very sort of stable and consistent in terms of the base that it creates for potential growth and expansion. So the product itself is kind of an innovation on a product that has been around for actually a really long time. So it was actually initially invented in the 1930s, and it's still very like widely used today. It's a very common product. So the fact that the product has such longevity gives me great confidence in how consistent I expect sort of sales and revenue to be at their current level. Because if something can sort of stick around for that amount of time and people see value in that and are using sort of a newer version of, but fundamentally the same product, I think that creates a really nice stable base of consistent revenue on which to sort of build on beyond that. So that would be my main thing. This isn't like a product that's a fad that's been around for a couple of years. It's something that really has been around for over 70, 80 years now even. And that would be my main reason to be really excited about taking this on and building new things on top of what's there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure our listeners that are tuning into this call can also see the value in that product being sort of in that evergreen niche. I mean, it offers that great potential to continue to grow down the road. So yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on the call today. And it was really great talking to you about your business, Carl. And I'm looking forward to hearing about this listing getting sold for you in the near future.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, really great to chat. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And all right, everyone. So thanks for listening. To learn more and to see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 50261. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.